Welcome, everyone. Good day or good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever in the world you are tuning in from today. Today, I have Magnus Stimner back to this session, who I'm very, very glad to see again. Unfortunately, Matthias has got a cold, so he's not going to be presenting. However, he is going to be supporting on the YouTube chat from the back end. So if you have questions, just please drop them in the chat, and Matthias is going to be supporting. Magnus, you are back again. You were here. You were sick last week, so you were moderating the chat. So you very well, time it with Matthias.
But today we're not sick at the same time, but doing stuff remote. I mean, it works.
It works. It works very well.
Yep.
And today you are going to be talking about requirement management with GitHub Issues.
Yes.
You are an MVP for, is it fourth year MVP now?
Yeah, if I qualify this in a few weeks, it's my third year.
It's the third. Okay.
Yes, I'm working a lot with my different stuff. I have to prove that I'm a good MVP. And my colleague Matthias I think it's his 15th year, so he's been there for a long time.
Okay. But well, it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
In 10 years, we will say, Magnus has been an MVP for 13 years.
Yeah, maybe. Let's hope so.
Yeah, but it's enough of me now. So I'm going to hand the word over to you so we can start the session and don't run over time. So I add your screen now, and I'll be in the background if I'm needed. But
thank you, Erika.
See you soon. Okay.
So as Erika said, the topic for today is requirement management with GitHub Issues. And my name is Magnus, as Erika introduced me as, and I'm a consultant at Solidify and also an MVP. With me, taking care of all the questions you have when you post them on YouTube is Matthias. And we have been running, this is the third season we're running with this series around GitHub. Last week we did the GitHub for modern developers, and next week our colleague Madis is going to do the power of GitHub Actions, and the week afterwards our colleague Sanjan is doing elevating security with GitHub Advanced Security. So stay tuned for those as well. I'll try to keep it to 45 minutes, so we'll have some time for questions as well. But feel free to spam the YouTube channel with the questions and give Matthias a good time answering them. So before the session, I asked an AI about what GitHub could help me do with requirements. I mean, AI is popular with everyone nowadays, so I thought I would try it out. And what the ChatGPT told me is issue tracking is important to working with requirements. Working with pull requests, that's also a good way to understand what's happening in the project and plan work. Wiki pages, also a good thing if you want to have documentation that is close to your code, documentation that you might otherwise store in Word documents or something. And also project boards, important as well. And actually all these things we're going to talk about today. So this is a really good fit of what I'm going to talk about. So we're going to start with issue tracking. What is an issue in GitHub? When talking about issues, we're going to talk about the markdown language, which is the way we visualize what we write and do in GitHub. We're also going to talk about pull requests and a diagram form where we can call mermaid, where we can store our diagrams as code as well, so we can do flowcharts and stuff. Really cool. We also have project boards where we visualize our tracking, where we can work with Kanban boards or iterations if we work in an agile way. We're going to take a brief look at we store our system documentation using GitHub Wikis. And as last cool stuff, I'm going to show you something called DrawIO, which is another way we can do diagram and charts together with GitHub. So last time, Matthias told us about the basic stuff in Git, or the premium stuff, or whatever we call it, coding. And here we can see all the different aspects of what we can do in GitHub. So it was code last time, planning this time, and next time it will be build. And there are also other topics where we can work with GitHub, doing testing, doing releases and deploys, and other stuff as well. So let's get down to the point. So first, before we start showing you anything in GitHub, I want to say a few words about working in an agile way. Agile, I don't know if it really means, but the idea of agile is working with small increments and delivering value to end users all the time. So you shouldn't just code an entire year and then deliver to your customer, because it might really not in the end be what they need. So the agile process is kind of identifying requirements. They're called user stories or product backlog items if we in the agile world. So we identify what we need to do. From that, we create a backlog. And a backlog is just a list of stuff that we can prioritize if we want. And then the idea is that we break down our requirements in something called sprints or iterations. And that's just a sequence of time where we deliver regularly. It could be 2 or 3 weeks sprints or iterations. So we deliver some end value to the customer every second or third week. So small incremental delivery, and then we go back to repeat and start all over again. So first thing that we had on the list was identify requirements or user stories. Most of you probably have seen GitHub before, and when you're working in an open source project, it can be a nice list if you go into the Issues tab with different stuff. It can be bugs or ideas for new stuff that are there. So the idea is to have the ideas of what we want to do in issues, and then break down the big things into smaller, more manageable, and use markdown when we do that. So let's jump into the code. I have the same project that Matthias worked with last time in our solidified demo environment. And if we go to the Issues tab here, we have a couple of issues that I created. And as you see, we can work, they all have a title. I added a couple of labels as well here, so we can try to understand what these are all about. And I just used the standard labels here. We have bugs, and we have enhancements and help wanted, good first issue, and that kind of stuff. And I have added, you can add assignees here. And you can also see that I have added some emoji symbols as well. I think it could be cool to enhance the experience or emphasize what the really problem is. Or, yeah, not only use words when you write things. So let's create a new issue and see how it can look. First thing off is a title. And let's do something. Let's say we want to develop a new app for sales. And that's just a title. And then down here in the text part here, we can use markdown. And I think Matthias, if he hasn't done it already, can post a link about the markdown language. And let's go here. And as you see, there's a real documentation where you can write headers, you can write style text in different ways, bold and italic and quotes and all sorts of stuff. So if I want to like heading, I can just write symbol for heading, or I can, if I want to use what is written up here. So this is a sample heading. And if I look at the preview, it looks, I misspelled it as well, heading, shedding. I can add all different kinds. I can just write ordinary text here. Text and much more. And if I want to, I can also, I can do bold, and it adds the bold symbol. I can do italic, and it adds the italic symbol, and we can do quite good formatting this way. And I can also, if I want to, I can mention someone. Let's say I want something for yes, for example, please check this out or something. And then he can get a notification, and we can have a discussion about what we do here. So it's a good way of writing documents instead of having them in Word, because having them stored here in Markdown, they are stored as code, and as code they are stored. We can work with them together with our Git repository with our source code. So that was a short thing about the basics in Markdown language. We can have an entire session about just Markdown. Next thing I'm going to show you is like, this is a big requirement, develop new app for sales. And we probably want to break down that in smaller things. And then we can use what's called a task list. That's something quite new in GitHub Issues. And here we can see it has a symbol for task list, or the Markdown syntax for task list. And then we can write a couple of tasks here. So I was thinking about create interface. And let's continue with the write backend and publish on marketplace. So let's just save this and see how it looks. So here you can see the things we wrote, and we have a little task list here, and this is the list where we can actually click on stuff and say that it's finished or not. But the really cool thing that I like here, that if this is our big requirement and we want to break it down into smaller stuff, we can actually just click here and convert it to an issue. So that way I can continue in the create interface issue and detail stuff even more. So we can see that it's an issue of its own, and we can go in and work there with the link. As I told you earlier, I can assign an issue to someone if I want to. I can assign myself or anyone else in the project. I can also apply different kinds of labels. There's a couple of other little bit cooler stuff that I want to show you about the Markdown language. We can continue to work in this heading here, or we can have a discussion where we discuss the topics we write here.
Sorry, Magnus. Would you just zoom in a little bit more? So that
yes, of course.
Bigger?
Thank you, Mirja.
Thank you.
Is this better?
Yes, much better. Thanks.
Yeah, I should have thought about it. Thank you. So let's continue and edit this stuff, and I'm going to show you some a little bit more, even cooler Markdown. Let's say in your text you might want to describe a code block or something, and then there's actually no, it was pasted as an image. That was my mistake. Let's do paste as text. So I can, in this case, I pasted a code block here, and it actually interprets it as I said, it was Ruby, and formatted it accordingly. So here you can have your code samples and other stuff as well. Next thing I'm going to show you is something called Mermaid. Mermaid, I think it's open source, but it's a diagram type where you can write diagrams as text, but actually showing them as diagrams. So same mistake as last time. I shouldn't just paste it, because then it pastes the picture. So here we have the mermaid syntax for a mermaid diagram. We have a title, and we have a diagram type, ER diagram. And if we go here, it actually translates the mermaid syntax into a nice diagram. So here we can actually have our application. If we want to have tell people or tell the other people in the project how the application is going to work, we can write this as text, and it's displayed as a diagram type. There's also the possibility to other stuff, like I have a short thing here about if you're into math expressions, there's actually YAML for that as well. Not YAML, Markdown, sorry. And I might do the same thing. Unformatted text. So this is a way you can describe mathematical stuff and have that in your code as well. So it shows us different kinds of math. So try to summarize Markdown. You can write everything you can possibly want to do as you do in Word, but you do it in a slightly other way, and it's stored as code. So let's go back briefly to the PowerPoint. So that was the basics of issues and how we break down those big issues into small issues. Next thing is there are other things that you might want to control or have an idea of how much work it is, or add work to other people, and that is pull requests. And as Matthias showed you last time, those of you who were there, a pull request is something like you do a code change and you want someone else to take a look at it before you merge it back to main for code quality purposes. So a pull request is similar to task or an issue where you can discuss and review potential changes with other people. Just prepared just a sample of a pull request here. So I did a small code change in one of my branches. And if we open it up here, we can see that actually what I have done here, a flow. And I can have a discussion with someone about if this is good or bad or getting ideas. And also I have some things that blocks me from merging to main. Someone else hasn't reviewed this. That has to be done before. So I had to assign it to someone so someone can review it before we can merge it. So this is also, it's a quality thing. So that was pull requests. So next step here that we have our list of issues, but now we actually want to create a backlog. And the backlog is the list of items that we can prioritize. And GitHub Projects hasn't been around for so long. I don't remember, a year maybe. So this is a list of stuff that we can work with, prioritize, and add some new fields and stuff. So I'm going to show you how we can go into GitHub Projects and first create what we call a backlog. So let's go over to the Projects tab here. And I prepared actually one. If my demo fails now, we can go in and take a look at what I already prepared earlier. But let's start with creating a new project. Create a new project for this repository. And we click New Project. And first, it just gives us a Magnus Teams untitled project, and I will call it Reactor Demo. It gives me some different kinds of, I can start up with a table like this. I can do a board directly if I want to. I can create what is called a team backlog, feature backlog. But regardless of what we select here, we can transform it and add other views as such. So let's just create this new blank table. And then if I want to, I can create new issues directly from here. But I have a really nice list of repositories, or I see issues in my repository. I thought I just add them from here. And now it identifies all the issues I have in this repository, or at least the 14 most recent ones. So I want all those in here, actually. And it should import them into this project here. There we have them. And let's just rename this as well. Let's call it the backlog. And if I want, I can just, if this is a backlog, the most important ones should be up on top. And I can just drag and drop them and prioritize them if I want to. And here, it might be easier to work from this list. I can get a better overview, and I can assign directly from here to different people if I want to. I can also add different statuses. In this case, we have to do, in progress, or done, but we can also add other statuses if we want. And we can add fields if we want to. We can group them in different ways and generate charts. But I thought for now, we just leave the backlog as it is. And we can work with this. We can prioritize. We can filter if we want to. If we don't want to show finished items, we can filter on that as well. I thought I'd just jump back to the PowerPoint and go to the third part here, that we can break down our requirements to sprints. So we want to control when in time we want to do stuff, and that we can work with what is called sprints or iterations, depend on if you're in the Agile or Scrum world. So I will start by adding a new field here, and that field will be an iteration field. And we can select when we want to start. We want to start like the 5th this week. And I want my sprints to be 3 weeks long. So we want to deliver value to the end customer every 3rd week. just click Save and Create. And then we can just select when our stuff is going to be finished. As the stuff that are on top are most important, I guess those are the ones that we should try to finish first here. So we can just continue filling this out and adding iterations, but there is an even easier way to do this. So let's create a new view. And we will actually group on iteration. And yes, let's call it iterations as well. And save it, save changes. And here we can see, we can, if we add one to, that was wrong, let's add it to, the field is not there, let's add it again. We can just add it to the other iterations if we want to, iteration 2, iteration 3. And when we are here and we have the iterations here, we can just drag and drop the stuff in the correct iteration if we want. So this is a way of planning when we're going to do things over time. Let's save that. And now we have taken a look at the backlog and the planning iteration stuff part. And I was thinking, let's show you how to work with a regular Kanban board. And a Kanban board is actually what's called a board here. And here we have, let's change the name for it as well. Save it. And the ones that doesn't have a status yet, they are in the no status column, but we can just drag the stuff that are in progress here, or what is to do. And this is a really good way to get an overview of everything that's happening in the project. So all that we see here in the backlog, the iteration, and the board, it's just different views of the same information. So depending on what role you have in your team, you might want one view or the other. I mean, if you're a product owner, then the backlog might be the thing for you. If you're the Scrum Master, iteration planning board, that might be something for you. If you're a regular user and just want to see what am I supposed to do at the moment, then this board might be something for you. But they all fit together, and you can add items and work with them from all different parts. Let's say also we want some more information here in this board. I would like to see the labels we have here. So I can just click in labels here, and then we should have gotten the labels here. Strange. Yeah, now they shown. It took some time. So we can see all the labels we have here. And let's save that. And we can filter if we want to. Let's see, like it right bug here. And we get all that have the label bug and so on. Last view I'm going to show you is what is called the roadmap. And roadmap is something that we can, if we have some kind of time field, and iteration is a time field, then we can see what is actually happening over time here. So here we get a view that we can see when stuff is going to be delivered. And we can see 9th today, and we can see what we should be working on this week. And if we added start and stop date instead, we will have like shorter blocks here, and we can see how they interconnect. So let's call that the roadmap. And actually, if you want to take a look about what's happening out at GitHub, they don't have the roadmap view here, but here we can see that GitHub has published their public roadmap in the project, so we can follow exactly what is happening over time and when stuff is delivered. So I think this is a cool thing. And they have done different kinds of filters here, depending on what's released on cloud, what's released on server, what's about GitHub Advanced Security, and so on. So let's go back here. There are some other stuff here that we can do. If we click here and select workflows, there's some basic workflows we can do. And more is coming, I know. Like for this one, when an item is added to a project, let's edit that one. If it's an issue or pull request, my TV is set to be turned off, so I'm back. So I can select if it's an issue or pull request, the types I have here. I can set the value to do, for example. Let's turn that on. And when an item is closed, other stuff can happen. So we have different kinds of workflows. They're probably coming more. And I hope that over time you can create your own workflows. You can do that with GitHub Actions. And our colleague Madis is going to show us that next week. A little bit of automation we can do there. So let's go back here to the project here. And this project here, the Reactor demo project. One thing I didn't show you yet, it's in the board part here. Let's say we want other fields here or columns. So we can just click plus here and add a new column. Let's call it ready for test, for example. And we can just drag it to wherever we want it and have that field there. So we can easily change our flows here and drag and drop stuff to where we suit us to do good planning. So that was boards. Let's go back for the next part here. So breaking down requirements to sprints or create small manageable increments to deliver all the time. Next, I'm going to talk about is wikis. So in GitHub, there is a wiki connected to every repository. And the idea of wikis is to host documentation for your repository. I mean, you could store them in READMEs, but putting them in a wiki makes it still close to your code, but not mixed with your code. And in the wiki, we can work with Markdown exactly the same way I've shown you when using issues. There's also another thing called GitHub Pages. We're not going to show you that today because that's an entire topic of their own. And this is actually a copy of or a picture of Solidify's intranet, where we have a GitHub repository with some formatting on that we publish. And then we can get all kinds of nice stuff. And we work with all the documents in Markdown, but when we publish it, it looks like any internal or external web. But I'm not going to show you that today, even if it's interesting. So let's go in, take a look at the wiki part here. So let's go back to the Reactor repository and click wiki here. And I just created a simple wiki page with some just information about Markdown. But if we edit here, we can see that we can do the same kind of stuff that we did in the issues because, I mean, it's the same things. There are some a little bit more help here with different heading levels, inserting pictures, that kind of stuff. And creating lists. You can also actually create in some other modes as well if you prefer other things than Markdown. And I actually have a picture here, and I'm just going to show you how easy it is to paste a picture. Just copy and paste, and then we have a picture inside here. So we can easily include pictures in our Markdown if we want to. And you can see it's stored inside GitHub in some GitHub user content and some random stuff as a PNG file. So use Markdown for documentation instead of having them in SharePoint or whatever you have, Office 365 or something. So let's just save the page. And as we see down here, it's actually stored in a repository that you can clone and work with if you want to. And you can add more pages and sidebars and that kind of stuff. So I think wikis are good. Next thing, or I'm going to show you, is not really connected to issues, but it's a good thing to use when you want to create more advanced diagrams and charts, something called DrawIO. And DrawIO is a thing you can use from lots of different toolings. They have their own client. You can work with it from Visual Studio Code and also GitHub Codespaces, and probably lots of other different platforms. So it's an alternative to Mermaid or Complement, and it creates PNG files, so you can edit PNG files with it. So let's take a brief look at that. Let's go back to the project here. And if you were in last week's session, Matthias told you about Codespaces, and Codespaces is a way of working with your code with the help of Visual Studio Code, but not actually working on your own machine. It's a virtual container in Azure that you can work with. And let's open the one I have here. So this code space is connected to my ordinary Visual Studio Code settings. So I get all the extensions and everything I have installed, same way as I have when I have it on my own local machine. And when creating the code space, I will not go into that now, but you can select different kinds of machines if you want to. So you can have, or they're all Linux machines, but you can select RAM and CPU and stuff. And let's just close that from the beginning. And if we go in here to extensions, I have installed an extension called, let's see if I find it, DrawIO integration, this one, DrawIO, an unofficial extension for DrawIO and Codespace, no, Visual Studio Code. And with that, if I have a PNG file like this one here and open it, I get lots of cool stuff here that I can work with. And then in this case, this is some kind of architectural diagram for an application up in Azure. Doesn't really matter what it is. And if I want to, I can do all different kinds of symbols and stuff here, and charts, and I assume there are more shapes here. Yeah, let's see what we can find here. We have Active Directory, for example. Then I get lots of Active Directory symbols. So you can create really advanced architectural diagrams here and store them with the code, and being able to edit them afterwards. It's not only a dumb picture of this here, you can actually edit it and do changes to it. And in this case, it's stored here in my branch, Magnus patch branch. And when I finish with it, I can just save it and commit it back to my project. And this is actually something I've done here. So if I go in here to the patch branch, I can see I have it here under assets where I created it. So here is showing what I did in my code space. And I just linked to it here from my README, and it's just a simple link. So if we go in and edit here, it's just a markdown syntax for link and just pointing out the PNG file. And I mean, working with Markdown and DrawIO together, or Mermaid, I mean, it's a really good way to get good documentation and easy to follow as well if you write them in the correct way. That is actually what I was going to show you. One other cool thing that doesn't have much to do with issues, or a little bit. When preparing for this presentation, I wanted to get a number of issues in without having to write them. And actually, Matthias helped me with that, because he had some old demo I used where he actually create a number of issues in a workflow. So I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to try out the GitHub API. So So in this case, there's a GitHub API for that you can create issues. So we th issues, create, and T for title. And then you add the content. So I just took these. See if I can manage to copy it, probably. Yeah, it's because of the sizing. Let's skip the last one and just do it. And then I just paste the stuff here for my code space. And I mean, this is not just for fun, but imagine you have stuff in another system, in an Excel sheet or something, or that you want to get into GitHub Issues. This is actually something you can use to migrate from Excel or Jira or whatever you want to, if you want to get your planning inside of GitHub instead. So let's see if we manage to get them in the correct place. Now we have 16 issues instead of, so we got some new stuff here that I threw in with the help of the API. So that was actually all I had planned for today. Let's finish up with the last few slides. So GitHub supports your requirement management in a light way. Use issues if you just need a list of items, or use project boards if you need more advanced planning. Try to use the full potential of the markdown language, and include mermaid or DrawIO if you want to do diagrams or charts together with your markdowns. There's actually another session I would like to just talk to you about. We have later today at 5, we have a session together with a company called Launch Darkly. And if you're interested in feature toggling and what that is and how you can use it together with GitHub and how to deploy your applications, feel free to join in. It's on Teams, or come in person if you're in Stockholm. I think Matthias will post a link in the chat as well if you're interested to learn more about what feature toggling is. That's actually at Reactor as well. And if you come there, you'll get to meet me and Erika live. So there are a couple of learning paths that we have. If you want to take a look at more, learn how what you can work with issues. So we have an introduction to GitHub. We have a link to using Markdown and a link to about working with GitHub Issues. And I think they're being posted in the chat as well. Last is the series next week is the power of GitHub Actions, where our colleague Madis is going to talk to you about what continuous integration is, how to work with multi-stage deploy, and also how we can use issue ops as working with issues to do automation and do self-services with that. I think that's really cool. So join in next week at the same time and listen in to us there. And that is all we have for now. So let's open up for questions.
Thank you, Magnus. We have one question. Can you filter the status? James is asking.
Yeah, let me show you
So
that.
I think that question came about halfway through your session.
Yep. So if I have our board here, up here, we can filter. Should be able to filter. Maybe we have to go to the board here. Filter by keyword or field. So here, as I showed you, we can filter on need. And we get all the ones including need. And we can actually add by field as well. So we can, I don't know the exact syntax here, but we should be able to write it like need. Yeah, it works. Magnus. So here can I filter on those assigned to me. So you can actually filter on status, text, field name, and that kind of stuff. And you can actually save those. So if you want to have your own board, all the things I'm working on now, you can save this as save changes and call it like Magnus board. We can do that. I actually use that for some people in my team when we discuss what we're working with at the same time. We call it Magnus issues or Magnus. there we have it. Do we have any more questions?
Yes, we have another one. Can we retrospective and user stories similar to Azure board?
Well, we don't have any retrospectives really. I would say Azure boards is still more advanced than GitHub. I mean, you can do more advanced project planning. But I know GitHub is working on new stuff, and I mean, just the roadmap stuff that came earlier and the task list we showed you, that is something that is improving GitHub. But retrospectives and that kind of stuff, that is still something you can only do in Azure DevOps, as far as I know at the moment. But they are evolving the product all the time, so there's probably stuff coming, but I don't know any details about that.
Thank you. Yeah, was questions about the previous. No more questions currently. But yeah, guys who is watching, I didn't get the link from Matthias for the Teams link for tonight.
Yeah.
But,
Do you have it, Matthias, or should I post it?
He's probably sneezing now. or blowing his nose. I don't know. He sounded quite sick. But yeah, guys, if anybody is watching from Stockholm, you're more than welcome to join us here at Microsoft Reactor, and you can meet me and Magnus in person tonight. There.
Did you get the link?
Yes, he did. So
perfect. Yeah. So I don't have to open my own personal LinkedIn in here. So
yeah, no. So yeah, thank you so much, Magnus. I will literally see you.
Yeah, if you are. Yep.
Yes, and then next week we are back to talk about the power of GitHub Actions.
Correct.
Yes. So yeah, thank you so much for today. And
thank you, Rika.
Thank you for everybody viewing.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Bye.